guess at the time I must have been 10 years old, when John F. Kennedy was running for president against Richard M. Nixon. I can vividly recall pretty close to Election Day in 1960. Nixon and Kennedy were neck and neck in the polls. No one was sure who was going to win. John F. Kennedy made a very stirring speech on the campus of the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, in which he proposed a radical idea at the time, because it was 1960, that we create something that he was calling the Peace Corps. He was going to invite young Americans, mostly college graduates from all over the country, to enlist for 2 years and go do good work around the world, and thereby give people around the world the opportunity to know Americans firsthand. And I remember as a 10-year-old boy turning to my mother and saying, "Mom, when I grow up and graduate college, I'm going to do that." And I did.
My second situation in the Philippines, they were expecting a white volunteer. So having me come there was like, who is this? Like, is she American? My counterpart actually told me that she had to tell her coworkers not to call me the N-word because it was not acceptable. They're getting nervous about the darker skinned people and they are thinking we're aggressive. And so I had to really say, Latarché, just be yourself. Just do not let it get to you. Be engaging, be approachable. People want to live their life comfortable as possible. You notice a lot of Black people, a lot of people, Latinos, they stay within their own communities because they don't want to have to deal with the discrimination. It is so hard. That goes to heart with Peace Corps trying to making it opportunities for people of color to volunteer. They have to make it worth their while. In the Philippines, I didn't have any support. And I admit some of it was my fault too, because at that point, I didn't reach out to Peace Corps for help. I thought I was strong and I was going to deal with it. Like, I wouldn't know how to tell someone who wouldn't understand my situation about my situation. And I probably wouldn't talk to you about it. It comes to you and it piles up. So you need to speak on it. One of the things I got feedback from the white volunteers in Honduras was, "Oh, you're just pulling a race card. It's not that bad." And I'm like, okay, you don't understand because you don't know it. You don't see it. And I'm not saying that the white volunteers didn't get their own share of discrimination, because I'm sure they did. They might not even know they're being discriminated against because they're not used to it. I trigger it really easy because I know when to see it because I deal with it all the time. I just wish anybody who's interested in the Peace Corps to understand that it is such a great opportunity. Even for me, who just told you all the stuff that happened that was not great, and I still loved it. I don't take any of those experiences away from it. It's made me who I am today.
I was the only Asian American volunteer. They actually called me La Chinoise, which is the Chinese lady. And I had to explain, and I had this spiel, I would say, in America, you have lots of different people with different color, hair, skin, origins. We all have different backgrounds. A lot of immigrants from different continents all find America their home. I may look different, but I am still American. The village people got it. They got it because they knew I was the American lady who lives in the hut behind the church, and she does work with the community. In the city, oftentimes I would get mistaken for a massage therapist or a Chinese lady who works in a special house for ladies. So I would get propositioned a lot, including, motorcycle taxi drivers would ask me how much I charge. Are you expensive? In the village, someone would have a VCR or a TV and would offer to collect a few pennies per person to show them old Hong Kong movies. So I think when they saw those movies, the kids would come and watch on a weeknight and they saw people like me, thought, "Oh, you're La Chinoise, so you must be from China." I said, "Well, I'm not from China," so I couldn't explode their brain with so much like cross-cultural
Korean,
yes. Korean American, but it just wouldn't fly. My sister joined me my last 2 weeks in Benin. And as we were getting on the tarmac to go up the stairs, they were checking my paper tickets and my passport, and they said, "You're not American. We don't believe you. These passports are fake." And they spent a good half hour looking at the passport under UV light to see if it was a counterfeit. It's like, "We don't believe you're American because you look Chinese to us." We were barred from entering, getting on the plane. So I finally had to pull out my Peace Corps ID and tell them I worked in your country for the Peace Corps. I'm finally leaving because I finished my duty, and you need to get me on this plane because my sister and I are American citizens. And so I had to do another spiel to educate. We look different, but it's because we had different origins, but our family is in the United States, and I volunteered as an American volunteer. So it took a long time. I thought we would not be able to board the plane, but we finally did.
Before Peace Corps, I was not out as a queer woman, and I didn't come out until I was in Peace Corps. It's funny, I actually came out to my group who I'd only known for 10 days during an activity in Jamaica before even a lot of my friends who I've known for years here in the States. They had a outside facilitator come in. He was doing an activity, a kind of cross the line activity to get to know each other. One of the questions was, cross the line if you identify and are a part of the LGBTQ community. I remember standing there and I was like, I'm not gonna tell no one. Like, people back home don't know. Like, I was thinking all this in my head. And so I crossed the line and I was the only one that did. And I started crying. And I think it was just more so like, wow, like I finally did that, but also like, I'm the only one. I had learned a little bit before about like Jamaica being very anti-LGBTQ. You know, staff talked to me and was like, you can't tell people in your community. Like, that would put you in a safety and security issue. Like, you can't do that. JFLAG is the Jamaican Lesbian and Gay Association there. They had came on TV and were talking about doing their first Pride. I remember my host father at the time saying, if anyone was to ever walk through these doors that were gay, I would kick them out and smack them. I remember that night I went in my bed and cried. I was like, oh my gosh. So while I was in Galena, I had partnered with the police youth club, and I had gotten to know someone from that program, an adult who was volunteering. And I remember one day she had come over, and I guess like to me, I was like, oh, okay, she dresses like tomboyish. And then she was like, well, how do you feel about gay people? And I remember saying like, oh no, I don't care. And she had came out to me, and I was the first person she had ever told. So then I confided in her because I wanted her to feel comfortable enough to know that like, she's not alone and she needs someone to talk to. And I remember my host father then, he saw her leaving and he was talking to me while we were sitting on the porch. And he was like, you know, she has a reputation in the community. He was like, yeah, people think, you know, she likes women. I was like, oh, okay. And he was like, yeah, he was like, but you know, and I said this to a couple of my friends, and they don't agree with me. He was like, but it ain't my business who she loves, so she can love who she wants. And like, it like hit me. So I think I told myself when I come back to the States, I'm not going to hide that because I have the privilege to not do that.
My ethnicity is Sri Lankan, Portuguese, and Dutch. But I was born and raised here. A lot of people think I'm from another country, but I have to tell people all the time that not everyone that looks like me is from another country. Some of us are born and raised here. So the first time I went to my village, they didn't see me as an American. They saw me as Indian. And they did not believe me at all. They laughed at me. They kept asking, when's this American showing up? And I had to keep telling them I'm the American. Every day or every other day, I had to go into a diversity session with a lot of the people there to talk about the United States and the diversity of our country because they just would not believe. And then sometimes I'd have another volunteer come to visit me who was Caucasian, and it was like a rock star arrived. They were inviting him to weddings, and I'm like, you don't even know this person. And so that was really, really hard. I was the first American that's ever lived in that village. So for me, it was a culture shock, but for them too, they were kind of confused. When I said I was an American, I had to justify myself. So the onus was placed on us, the minority volunteers, to educate and to talk to people. And I told Peace Corps, like, we need to do a better job. We need to make it like a requirement that every volunteer talks about these issues. Everyone's service is vastly different. The service for me was extremely challenging, but it was never about me. It was about helping those children, helping the community. And that was the motivator. That was the biggest thing for me.
I was one of very few Latino males. I got a lot of attention from other volunteers because I played the guitar. I was very gregarious. I dance. I mean, I'm a hodgepodge of Texas in a sense. And so at times I felt as if I was being singled out, and I was at times. My mother wasn't very happy. She didn't necessarily understand it. My brother wasn't really for it either. He thought it was an elite organization that was not necessarily for kind of working class, working poor Mexican Americans. They had kind of a lot of misconceptions about the Peace Corps. I got a postcard that they needed a recruiter in Dallas. And I became a regional recruiter and traveled to every major university in Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, and New Mexico. I was a national diversity liaison for the office. Got interested in graduate school. I was part of the Return Peace Corps Association. I was a Peace Corps recruiter on campus. I wasn't successful, but I ran for office. I did a lot of work that was connected to Peace Corps, and Peace Corps really opened up things for me in New Mexico. I have lived an extremely privileged life, a very rewarding life. And that is pretty much a lot of it because of the Peace Corps.
I was aware to me that I was kind of the only Indian person growing up. And I think as a child, I went through a period of self-loathing. Once I reached high school, I joined a club called Model United Nations. By learning about other cultures, I realized that I could be comfortable in my own culture and other people would be interested if I shared. So that just changed everything for me. And I knew that I wanted to be in DC and I wanted to spend my life working on development. One of the enduring lessons I have is my fellow Peace Corps cohort that came with me. They came from all parts of America. Sometimes we all live in silos and we forget that, America is this huge, diverse land. The biggest thing I learned was how to listen. A lot of what I had, all my preconceived notions were switched on their heads. We go in thinking we know the answers. And I realized, if anything, I needed to have done more listening. I think we all need to do more listening, especially in a corporate environment. It's so important. I think businesses and big companies are realizing this. You need people that are able to adapt and that have these soft skills. I wouldn't have gotten that if I hadn't done the Peace Corps. We have such an American-centric viewpoint. And I think you can see that in a lot of companies because a lot of the companies are based in America. The policies are American. But our products aren't just used by Americans. You find RPCVs in every walk of life. When I rang the bell to end my service was one of the proudest moments of my life. And it wasn't because it was just me. It was because of the community of people that got me to where I, was able to ring that bell. And every time I meet another RPCV, that's what I think of.
One of the things that I have drilled down on is not only to help them understand the culture of the United States, but help them understand the culture of African Americans in the United States. The 2-year volunteers were teaching in these villages. And one of the things they said on this chat was that some Rwandans didn't think they were Americans because they were Black. And that is a real hurtful situation. And what is being said to them is that we don't believe that you're a legitimate American because you're Black. And that's the lack of Peace Corps, not marketing well. One of the things that I read this week was the NPCA Connect report. And I really am hopeful that what they say with regard to diversity is implemented, because there is a connection or a feeling of being separate from the actual umbrella of Peace Corps with some volunteers. They feel that they are separate from the Peace Corps mandate. I think that they get that feeling because of the experiences that they're having from people in the country. And that's because the host country nationals haven't been educated. I think that the young people who have a real problem with the host country nationals not believing they're real Americans is that they don't know how to take it into a teaching situation. They harness the resentment instead of looking at it as an opportunity to teach. Oh, this is a teaching moment, they should say to themselves, and then act accordingly. I love the Peace Corps. I am so pleased to be of service. And so I am really proud of the Peace Corps, and I'm proud to be a member of an alumna